This is a screencast on how to identify sentences that do not make sense or are grammatically incorrect, and also how to describe why a sentence does not make sense or is grammatically incorrect. That grammatically piece, again, is to do with means if that the words are used make sense or that the punctuation has been used correctly. So we're looking to identify, which just means name it, say that that's incorrect, and describe why the sentence means it's incorrect because it doesn't have whatever. Now we know we can use this when we can use capital letters where there is a proper noun, names of countries, people or places. So for instance, Mr. Ladbrook, Maha, Kate. One Direction should all have capital letters. Use commas, and this is the one we're going to particularly focus on today, where the writer gives us information in the sentence, and often they use commas instead of words. And full stops are used at the end of sentences. We're going to particularly focus on the commas one today. So if we scroll down the page a bit further, we've got the garage sale here. We have the first sentence here. Old Mrs. McGinty, who lived in her house for 65 years, was having a garage sale. Now, this sentence requires two commas. It requires one after old Mrs. McGinty, because it's initially starting out with her. Then it's giving an extra piece of information here that she lived in her house for 65 years. It's giving a new piece of information, and then it says was having a garage sale. So again, those are extra pieces of information, so we can add another comma in there over here. She wanted to clear out her house for some clutter from her house. That sentence doesn't require one because it makes sense and there's no extra information being given. The sale, which was being held on Saturday, had been advertised in the local paper. So the sale, as you can see here, is which was being held on Saturday. That's the extra piece of information there, had been advertised. This is the extra piece of information here, so we need to add one at the end, at the beginning of it, and at the end. It's the extra piece of information, very important. Scroll down a bit further. On Friday night, Mrs. McGinty went down to the garage to check that everything was in order for the next day. The blue and white dinner set was going for a bargain, she thought, at $35. Now if we look at the sentence closely, the blue and white dinner set was going for a bargain. For a bargain she thought at $55. No need for that one because it's all about the same piece of information. The grandfather clock had been running a little slow. The grandfather clock that, although running a little slow, did still go. This is did still go is the extra piece of information, so we need to add a comma here, and we don't need to add one at the end because it's a full stop. Because this did still go is the extra piece of information is this. The grandfather clock, and also needs one there at the beginning. The vase, as you can see here, the vase, and then the next bit goes, which she had been given as a 21st birthday present, and then that's the extra piece of information, had a small crack, but you'd hardly have noticed it. When Mrs. McGinty looked, now this piece here, going back, because they've added the but in here, you actually don't need to add the comma, because the but links the two pieces of information together. When Mrs. McGinty looked at herself in the oak frame mirror, this is the extra piece here, which used to hang in the bedroom, comma again at the end here, she wondered how the years had flown by so quickly. Mrs. McGinty, who by this time was beginning to feel a little shaky, sat down. Mrs. McGinty, who by this time, she looked slowly around at all her things. She thought she thought. Suddenly she got to her feet. A gleam came to her eyes. Mrs. McGinty marched as well as a little old lady with wobbly knees can out of the front gate and